Chapter 15. Nice to have you back, Mr. Redford. This is becoming an unfortunate habit, Lieutenant. Redford took his seat at the interview table. I'm expected in New Los Angeles in a few hours. I trust you won't inconvenience me long. I believe in backing up my data. Wouldn't want anything or anyone to slip through the cracks. She glanced toward the corner where Peabody stood, looking her officious best in full uniform. On the other side of the glass, Eve knew, Whitney and the prosecutor watched every move. She nailed it down here, or very likely, she'd be nailed herself. She took her seat, nodded to the hologram of Redford's chosen counsel. Obviously, neither Redford nor his attorney believed the situation was serious enough to warrant an in-the-flesh representation. Counselor, you have the transcript of your client's statements? I do. The pinstriped, tough-eyed image folded his manicured hands. My client has cooperated fully with you and your department, Lieutenant. We agreed to this interview only to finalize the matter. You agreed to it because you don't have a choice, she thought, but kept her face bland. Your cooperation is noted, Mr. Redford. You have stated that you were acquainted with Pandora, that you had a casual and intimate relationship. That's correct. Were you also involved in any business dealings with her? I produced 2 direct-to-home screen videos in which Pandora played a part. Another was under consideration. Were these projects successful? Moderately. And outside of these projects, did you have any other business dealings with the deceased? None. A faint smile touched his mouth. Other than a small speculative investment. A small speculative investment? She claimed to have been laying groundwork for her own fashion and beauty line. Of course, she needed backers and I was intrigued enough to invest. You gave her money? Yes. Over the course of the last year and a half, I invested just over $300,000. Found a way to cover your ass, Eve noted, and leaned back in her chair. What's the status of this fashion and beauty line you claim the deceased was implementing? It has no status, Lieutenant. He lifted his hands, let them fall. I was duped. It wasn't until after her death that I discovered there was no line, no other backers, no product. I see. You're a successful producer, a money man. You must have asked her for a prospectus, figures, expenses, projected earnings. Perhaps a sample of the product's number. His mouth tightened as he looked down at his hands. I did not. You expect me to believe that you just handed her money for a projected line you had no information on? It's embarrassing. He lifted his eyes again. I have a reputation in the business, and if this information gets out, that reputation would certainly suffer. Lieutenant, the counselor interrupted. My client's reputation is a valuable asset. This asset will be damaged if this data goes beyond the parameters of this investigation. I can and will secure a gag order on this portion of his statement to protect his interests. Go right ahead. This is quite a story, Mr. Redford. Now, do you want to tell me why a man with your reputation, your assets, would commit $300,000 to an investment that didn't exist? Pandora was a persuasive woman, a beautiful one. She was also clever. She skirted around my request for projections and figures. I justified the continued payments because I felt she was an expert in the field. And you didn't learn of her duplicity until after her death. I made some inquiries. I contacted her business agent, her representative. He puffed out his cheeks and nearly succeeded in looking sheepish. No one knew anything about the line. When did you make these inquiries? He hesitated for a heartbeat. This afternoon. After our interview? After I questioned you on the payments? That's correct. I wanted to ensure there was no mix-up of any kind before I answered your questions. On advice of counsel, I contacted Pandora's people and discovered I'd been conned. Your timing, eyes a broken bar, very skillful. Do you have any hobbies, Mr. Redford? Hobbies? A man with your type of high-pressure job, a broken bar assets, must need some sort of release. Stamp collecting, computer doodling, gardening. Lieutenant, the counselor said with weariness. The relevance? I'm interested in your client's leisure time. We've established how he spends his business time. Perhaps you speculate on investments as a release valve. No. Pandora was my first mistake and will be my last. I don't have time for hobbies, or the inclination for them. I know what you mean. I had someone tell me today that more people should plant petunias. I can't imagine spending time digging in dirt and fussing with flowers. Not that I don't like them. You like flowers. They have their place. That's why I have a staff to deal with them. But you're a licensed horticulturist. You applied for a license and were granted one 3 months ago, just about the time you made a payment to Jerry Fitzgerald in the amount of $125,000, and 2 days before, you placed an order for an Immortal blossom from the Eden colony. My client's interest in flora has no relevance in this matter. It has plenty, Eve shot back, and this is an interview, not a trial. I don't need relevance. Why did you want an Immortal? It was a gift for Pandora. You went to the considerable time, trouble, and expense to secure a license, then purchased a controlled species at considerably more expense, as a gift for a woman you occasionally had sex with. A woman who over the last 18 months bled you for over $300,000. That was an investment. This was a gift. This is bullshit. Save your objections, counselor, they're duly noted. Where's the flower now? In New L.A. Officer Peabody arranged to confiscate. Now, just a damn minute. Redford scraped back his chair. That's my property, paid for. You falsified data on your license. You illegally purchased a controlled species. It will be confiscated, and you will be charged appropriately. Peabody? Yes, sir. Smothering a smirk, Peabody took out her communicator and made the contact. This is obvious harassment. The counselor scowled. And these petty charges are ridiculous. Oh, I'm just getting started. You knew about the Immortal blossom, knew it was a necessary element to create the drug. Pandora was going to make big money on that drug. Was she trying to cut you out? I don't know what you're talking about. Did she turn you onto it? Give you enough tastes to addict? Maybe she held it back then, until you wanted to beg for it, until you wanted to kill her. I never touched it. Redford exploded. But you knew about it. You knew she had it, and there were ways of getting more. Did you decide to cut her out instead? Bring Jerry in? You bought the plant. We'll find out if you had the substance analyzed. With the plant, you could manufacture your own. You wouldn't need her. You couldn't control her, either, could you? She'd want more money, more of the drug. You found out it was fatal, but why wait 5 years? With her out of the way, you'd have a clear field. I didn't kill her. I was through with her. I had no reason to kill her. You went to her house that night. You went to bed with her. She had the drug. Did she taunt you with it? You'd already killed twice to protect yourself and your investment, but she was still in the way. I killed no one. She let him shout. Let the counselor spout his objections and threats. Did you follow her to Leonardo's that night, or did you take her? I was never there. I never touched her. If I was going to kill her, I'd have done it in her own house when she threatened me. Paulie, shut up. Just shut up. Redford spat at his counsel. She's trying to pin murder on me, for Christ's sake. I argued with her. She wanted more money, a lot more money. She made sure I saw her supply of the drug. How much she had at her personal disposal. It was worth a fortune. But I'd already had it analyzed. I didn't need her, and I told her so. I had Jerry to endorse the line when it was ready. She was furious, threatened to ruin me, to kill me. It gave me great pleasure to walk out on her. You planned to manufacture and distribute the illegal yourself? As a topical, he said, dabbing his mouth with the back of his hand. Once it was ready, it was irresistible. The money. Her threats meant nothing. Do you understand? She couldn't ruin me without ruining herself. And that, she would never do. I was finished with her. And when I heard she was dead, I opened a bottle of champagne and toasted her killer. Very nice. Now let's start again. After Eve turned Redford over to booking, she stepped into the commander's office. Excellent work, Lieutenant. Thank you, sir. I'd rather be booking him for murder than drug charges. That may come. I'm counting on it. Prosecutor. Lieutenant. He'd risen when she'd come in, and continued to stand. His manners were well known in and out of the courtroom. Even when he went in for the kill, He did so with panache. "I admire your interview techniques. I'd love to have you on the witness stand in this matter, but I don't believe it will come to trial. Mr. Redford's attorney has already contacted my office. We'll negotiate. And on the murder, we don't have enough to tie him. No physical evidence," he went on before she could protest. "And motive a broken bar. You've proven he had the means to his end before her death. It's still more than possible that he's guilty, but we have quite a bit more work to do to justify charges." "You justified charging Mavis Freestone on overwhelming evidence," he reminded her. "You know she didn't do it, prosecutor. You know that the 3 victims in this matter are tied together." She looked toward Casto, who lounged in a chair. "Illegals knows it." "I have to go with the lieutenant on this," Casto drawled. "We've investigated the aspect of Freestone being involved with the substance known as immortality, found no connection between her and the drug or either of the other victims. She had some splotches on her record, but they're old and minor. You asked me, the lady was in the wrong place at the wrong time." He offered Eve a smile. "I have to throw my weight with Dallas and recommend the charges against Mavis Freestone be dropped pending further investigation." "Your recommendation is noted, Lieutenant," the prosecutor said. "The prosecutor's office will take it into consideration as we review all current data." At this point, our belief that these 3 homicides are linked still falls short of solid proof. Our office is, however, willing to agree to Miss Freestone's representative's recent request for testing, re-truth detection, auto-hypnosis, and VR recreation. The results will weigh heavily in our decision. Eve let out a long, slow breath. It was a concession, and a big one. "Thank you. We're on the same team, Lieutenant." And now we'd all best keep that in mind and coordinate our stand before this press conference. As they prepped, Eve moved over to Casto. "I appreciate what you did." He shrugged it off. "It was my professional opinion. I hope it helps your friend." "Ask me, Redford's guilty as homemade sin. Either he whacked them himself or paid to have it done." She wanted to latch onto that, but shook her head slowly. "Professional hits seems sloppy for Prowse, too personal." "Still, thanks for adding the weight. You can consider it payback if you want for handing me one of the biggest illegals cases of the decade. Once we clean it up and go public with the immortality drug and the busts, I'm going to get me a set of captain's bars." "Then congratulations in advance." "I'd say that goes for both of us." "You're going to nail down these homicides, Eve. Then we'll both be sitting pretty." "I'll nail them down all right." She lifted a brow when he brushed a hand over her hair. "I like it." With a quick smile he tucked his hands in his pockets. "You damned sure you gotta get married?" Angling her head, she smiled back. "I hear you're having dinner with Peabody." "She's a jewel, all right." "I've got a weakness for strong women, Eve. And you'll have to forgive me if I'm a little disappointed in the timing here. Why don't I try to be flattered instead?" She caught Whitney's signal and sighed. "Oh hell, here we go." "Makes you feel like a big meaty bone, don't it?" Casto murmured as the doors opened to a horde of reporters. They got through it, and Eve would have considered it a good day's work if Nadine hadn't ambushed her in the underground lot. "This area's off limits to unauthorized personnel." "Give me a break, Dallas." Still lounging on the hood of Eve's car, Nadine grinned. "How about a lift?" "Channel 75's out of my way." When Nadine only continued to smile, Eve swore and uncoded the doors. "Get in." "You look good," Nadine said casually. "Who's the stylist?" "Friend of a friend." "I'm tired of talking about my hair, Nadine." "Okay, let's talk about murder, drugs, and money." "I just spent 45 minutes talking about that." Eve flashed her badge at the security camera and bumped out to the street. "I believe you were there." "What I saw was a lot of dancing and dodging." "What's that squeaking noise?" "My well-tuned vehicle." "Oh yeah, you got hit with budget cuts again, didn't you?" "Damn shame." "Anyway, what's this business about a new line of inquiry?" "I'm not at liberty to discuss that aspect of the ongoing investigation." What's this buzz about Paul Redford?" "Redford has, as stated in the press conference, been charged with fraud, possessing a controlled specimen, and intent to manufacture and distribute an illegal. And where does that tie to Pandora's murder? I'm not at liberty to. Alright, shit. Nadine flopped back in the seat, scowled at the traffic clogging the roadway. How about a trade? Maybe. You first. I want an exclusive interview with Mavis Freestone. Eve didn't bother to answer. She just snorted. Come on, Dallas, let her tell her side of it to the public. Screw the public. Can I quote you? You and Rourke have her surrounded. Nobody can get to her. You know I'll be fair. Yeah, we have her surrounded. No one can or will get to her. And you'd probably be fair. But she's not talking to the media. Is that her decision, or yours? Back off, Nadine, unless you want to try public transportation from here. Just relay my request. That's all I'm asking, Dallas. Just let her know I'm interested in letting her tell her story on air. Fine. Now change the channel. Alright, I got an interesting little tidbit from the gossip station anchor this afternoon. And you know how I live to hear the details of the lives of the rich and ridiculous. Dallas, face it, you're about to become one of them. At Eve's furious grimace, Nadine laughed. Christ, I love needling you. It's so easy. Anyway, word is that the hot couple of the last couple months is Split City. I'm agog. You may be when I tell you that hot couple consists of Jerry Fitzgerald and Justin Young. Eve's interest level rose enough to have her reconsidering swinging into a bus stop and ditching her passenger. Do tell. There was a very public scene today at the rehearsal for Leonardo's showing. Apparently our lovebirds got physical. Blows were exchanged. They hit each other. More than love taps, according to my source. Jerry retired to her dressing room. She has the star's dressing room now, by the way, and Justin left in a huff and with a puffy eye. A few hours later, he was in Maui, partying with another blonde. Also a model. A younger model. What were they fighting about? No one's sure. Sex is thought to have reared its ugly head. She accused him of cheating on her. He did the same. She wasn't going to stand for it. Neither was he. She didn't need him anymore. He didn't need her right back. That's interesting, Nadine, but it doesn't mean anything. But the timing, Eve thought. Oh, the timing. Maybe it does. Maybe it doesn't. But it's funny, people in the public eye like that. Both of them media personalities losing it in front of an audience. I'd have to say they were pretty wired up or putting on a hell of a show. Like I said, it's interesting. Eve pulled up at the security gates of Channel 75. This is your stop. You could take me to the door. Take a tram, Nadine. Listen, you know you're going to look into what I just told you, so how about matching some data? Dallas, you and I have a history here. That was true enough. Nadine, things are balanced on a very thin line right now. I can't afford to tip it. I won't go on air with anything until you give me the go-ahead. Eve hesitated, then shook her head. I can't. Mavis is too important to me. Until she's in the clear, solid, I can't risk it. Is she heading toward the clear? Come on, Dallas. Off the record, the prosecutor's office is reconsidering the charges. But they're not dropping them. Not yet. Have you got another suspect? Redford? Is he your new prime? Don't push me on this, Nadine. You're almost a friend. Hell, let's do this. If anything I've told you, or pass on later regarding this adds to your case, you pay back. I'll feed you, Nadine, as soon as it's cleared. I want a one-on-one with you, 10 minutes before any info hits the media. Eve leaned over, opened Nadine's door. See you. 5 minutes. God damn it, Dallas. 5 lousy minutes. Which meant, Eve knew, hundreds of ratings points and thousands of dollars. I can do 5A if and when. I can't promise you more. It'll be when. Satisfied, Nadine got out, then leaned on the door. You know, Dallas, you just don't miss. It'll be when. You've got a knack for the dead and the innocent. The dead and the innocent, Eve thought with a shudder as she drove away. She knew that too many of the dead were the guilty. There was moonlight drizzling through the sky window over the bed when Rourke shifted away from Eve. It was a new experience for him. The nerves before, during, after lovemaking. There were dozens of reasons, or so he told himself as she curled against him. As was her habit. The house was full of people. Leonardo's motley team had taken over an entire wing with their mania. He had several projects and deals at varying stages of development, business he was determined to close before the wedding. There was the wedding itself. Surely a man was entitled to be a bit distracted at such a time. But he was, at least with himself, a brutally honest man. There was only one reason for the nerves. That was the image that continually leapt into his mind of Eve, battered and bloodied and broken, and the terror that by touching her he might bring it all back, turn something beautiful into the beastly. Beside him she stirred, then pushed herself up to look down at him. Her face was still flushed, her eyes dark. "I don't know what I'm supposed to say to you." He trailed a finger along her jaw. "I'm not fragile. There's no reason for you to treat me as if I'm wounded." His brows drew together, the annoyance self-directed. He hadn't realized he was that transparent, even with her. And the sensation didn't sit well. "I don't know what you mean." He started to get up, with the idea of pouring a drink he didn't want, but she took a firm grip on his arm. "Avoidance isn't your usual style, Rourke." It worried her. "If your feelings have changed because of what I did, what I remember, don't be insulting." He snapped it out, and the temper kindling in his eyes was a great relief to her. "What am I supposed to think?" "This is the first time you've touched me since that night." It was more like nursing than you have a problem with tenderness. He was clever, she thought. Calm or aroused, he knew how to turn things to his own favor. She kept her hand on his arm, her eyes level with his. "Do you think I can't tell you're holding back?" "I don't want you to hold back. I'm fine." "I'm not." He jerked his arm free. "I'm not. Some of us are a little more human, need a little more time. Leave it alone." His words were a sharp slap on a naked cheek. She nodded once, slid down into bed, and turned away from him. "All right. But what happened to me when I was a child wasn't sex. It was an obscenity." She closed her eyes tight and willed herself to sleep.